Thought I'd share with you another mask. I think I shared with you earlier a mask from one part of Africa and a mask carved out of wood from the Indonesian area. This mask is from a different part of Africa. The little decorations are all carved in as well as painted. This is hand carved for the celebrations. I don't remember exactly where I got this one in Africa, but we read in our last lesson about some masks that Native American tribes carved. If you remember, we were reading about the potlatches and about the Tlingit, and that they carved totem poles and masks. So let's just take a look at this page in your book before we move on. This mask is one that is made of copper and bone, and this particular mask is an Inca warrior's mask, and it is made of gold. And then this mask that you have in your book on this side is an interesting one. It's Haida, and remember the Haida Native Americans were right up here in the northwest region where the Tlingit are, the Tlingit and the Haida. This is a Haida mask, and you could wear it like this, where it has eyes and like a beak kind of going forward like an eagle. You could wear it that way, or you could open it up and see how the beak part here then ends up, if you open it, ends up out on the side, and then it looks like it has a face, a human face, when you open all of these parts that were folded over here. And this is human hair that they wove into this mask. Some fascinating masks from around the world. So we're going to continue our exploration. And again, we're still in the western region. We're here in California, and we're going to be learning about some changes that took place in the West due to something they found. Exploration and growth. It's 1542. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, a Portuguese explorer for Spain, set sail from the west coast of New Spain or Mexico. You are part of his crew. Cabrillo's ship is on a northerly course. He plans to explore the Pacific coast in search of riches in a water passage that connects the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. You remember, we've read about other explorers that were really wanting to find a way across this continent by a river that connected the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, because the waters were like highways. You don't know what to expect. You hope that the voyage will be successful. You've left your family to join Cabrillo. You have no idea what you will find. You walk the deck of the ship, dreaming about finding lots of silver and gold. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was probably the first European to see the coast of what is now California. This long purple state that we now call California. That's what we're talking about. The Spanish sent other explorers north along the coast of California as well. Some of these explorers suggested that Spain should send colonists to settle in the new land. When the Spanish settled in an area, they often established Roman Catholic missions. A Franciscan priest, Father Junipero Serra, decided to leave his mission to set up a mission in what is today California. Father Serra built the first California mission in 1769. That mission was the beginning of the city of San Diego. You may have heard of San Diego as a big city today. Or maybe you've been there with you or your family on a trip, or maybe you have relatives that live there. By 1823, the Franciscans had built 21 missions in California. The missions served both Spanish settlers and Native Americans. Several California cities, such as Santa Barbara and San Francisco, I think everybody's heard of San Francisco, began as missions. Explorers from other lands also traveled throughout the West. In 1812, Russians built a fur trading post at Fort Ross, north of San Francisco. Russians also claimed much of Alaska. The British built fur trading posts along the Pacific coast in what are today Oregon and Washington. But in 1841, the first of many wagon trains brought American settlers to the West. The United States wanted California to become an American territory. Mexico was now free of Spanish rule and owned the territory but refused to sell the land. In 1846, war started between Mexico and the United States over several areas of land in the West and the Southwest. The United States won the war in 1848. Mexico was forced to give up California along with some of its other territories in North America. So if we see this map, we can see this orange right here. The Russians claimed. Of course, that's now our state of Alaska. The British, or we sometimes call them the English, had all of this part. And Mexico was all of these states were part of Mexico. And then this was the United States. And the United States was kind of fighting with Britain over this part, and also with Mexico over this part of the country that now belongs to us as a country of the United States of America. Remember, we studied earlier about how this country came about due to wars, also to land purchases, and also to treaties or agreements that were signed with other countries. Here's where things begin to change in the West. Gold. In 1839, a Swiss immigrant named John Sutter moved to California. He settled on land in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. We studied about the Sierra Nevada. Those are mountains in the west. In January 1848, James Marshall, was busy building a mill for Sutter along the American River. Marshall saw something shiny in the water as it passed by the mill. It was gold. Marshall told Sutter about the gold, and they decided to keep the discovery a secret. Word got out, though. Soon thousands of people were headed toward California and Sutter's mill. The California gold rush was on. Prospectors came from all over the world hoping to find gold in California. A prospector is someone who searches for valuable minerals. Some came overland from the eastern United States. This was a long and dangerous trip. Some traveled by sea from the east coast to the west coast. At that time, the shortest sea route was 15,000-mile journey around South America to the small port of San Francisco on the California coast. Prospectors even sailed across the Pacific Ocean from China. Before we move to the other page, this is what they're talking about. It took so very, very long to cross the country by wagon or by foot. Many people could take more supplies and go by boat, but you could not come through because this was a land bridge connecting the two continents. So you had to go all the way down to the tip of South America and all the way back to San Francisco. 15,000-mile journey. Anyway, the prospectors traveled. The journey took a long time. Most gold seekers didn't get to California until 1849. That is how they got the name 49ers. You may remember that today we have a football team in San Francisco called the 49ers. That is from history because people looking for gold arrived there in San Francisco. There's San Francisco here in 1849, so 49ers. By the way, these are all gold rush places where they found gold. Gold strike means they found gold, and people headed there to try to find the gold for themselves. San Francisco had a good harbor. It was the closest port to the California gold fields. Many 49ers passed through the city. By 1849, the tiny port had grown into a big city with a population of 100,000. At that time, that was a truly big city. San Francisco was not the only city that boomed because of the gold rush. This boom doesn't mean like a loud sound. It means a quick growth. Wherever gold, silver, or other valuable metal ore was discovered, boom towns grew quickly. Miners came, and so did merchants. Merchants built businesses to provide goods and services for the miners. In fact, many merchants became wealthier from the gold rush than the miners did. One of the most successful of these merchants was Levi Strauss. He made canvas tents for the miners until he realized they needed sturdy pairs of pants. He made a fortune sewing and selling denim jeans. That's where they came from, guys. Jeans came from this era when they needed tough pants to work in. Prospectors found valuable metal ore throughout the West. More towns such as Denver, Colorado, and Carson City, Nevada became boomtowns. In time, a railroad was built across North America, linking the east and west coasts. Traveling west by train was shorter and easier than sailing or traveling by wagon. More people moved to the west. Some cities, many of them along railroad lines, continued to grow. But once the metal ore was mined from an area, many boomtowns, whatever that means, they grew quickly, were deserted. They became ghost towns. That doesn't mean ghosts live there. It means that no one lives there. Tourists can visit ghost towns throughout the West. It just means towns with all the buildings abandoned. The Wild West. In the mid-1800s, the West was new territory to most Americans. It could also be dangerous. Boomtowns could be loud and rowdy places. Towns that grew up almost overnight rarely had good police departments. As the gold rush ended, cattle drives began to take hold of the West. Cowhands drove herds from the ranches in Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, and Utah to towns on the railroad, just as Texas cowhands did, that we studied earlier. The cowhands often celebrated the end of the trail in these cow towns. They could get pretty wild. The colorful and often violent characters of the West created a lasting legend, the Wild West. One of the most famous characters was William Buffalo Bill Cody. In 1883, Cody formed a famous traveling show called Buffalo Bill's Wild West. It featured trick riding and rifle shooting and western wildlife and more. By the 1890s, the Wild West had been tamed through songs, stories, and movies. However, the legend still lives on. This is a ghost town you can check out in your book. Maybe you have visited a ghost town with your family. At the top of the page, we see territories that became states. You can check out those states and the flags. Let's see if we can get this in focus. This talks particularly about the state of Alaska. The territories of the West became states between 1850 and 1959. If you look at the chart, you'll notice the last two territories to become states, Alaska and Hawaii, are both in the West and became states in the same year, 1959. Alaska was once a territory claimed by the country of Russia. If you remember, we looked at the map earlier. It was in orange and it showed that Russia claimed it. The Russians used the territory mainly for fur trading. In 1867, Russia sold Alaska to the United States for a little more than $7 million, or about 2 cents an acre. The United States hoped that fur trapping in Alaska would help the United States economy. Alaska had even more natural resources, however. In the 1880s and 1890s, gold was discovered in parts of Alaska and Canada. Then, just as California, thousands of people rushed to the area. The cities of Juneau and Fairbanks grew quickly. During World War II, military bases in Alaska were an important line of defense for the United States. Airfields and highways built during the war helped boost transportation and business development after the war. Alaska became a state in 1959. In 1968, vast oil deposits were discovered on the coast of the Arctic Ocean in Alaska. An 800-mile-long pipeline was built to bring the oil to Valdez, where it could be loaded onto ships and transported to ports around the world. And our last one that we're looking at is Hawaii. Hawaii is a chain of islands in the Pacific Ocean. In 1900, the United States made Hawaii a territory. Hawaiian farms produce sugarcane and pineapples for export to the United States mainland. The United States also built ports and military bases on the islands. A major base was built at Pearl Harbor. In December 1941, Japanese warplanes attacked Pearl Harbor. This brought the United States into World War II. Hawaiians had discussed statehood even before World War II. After the war ended, Hawaiians again asked for statehood. Finally, in 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state.